What would it take to make you beg for God's assistance with a feeling? What would it take to make you beg for God's help with an emotion? Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion. This video will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion playlist. Number two being the Emily Dickinson playlist. The poem in question today is an Emily Dickinson poem, which, to the best of my recollection, has not appeared on this channel. It is known as If Recollecting Were Forgetting, and it reads as such. If recollecting were forgetting, then I remember not. And if forgetting, recollecting, how near I had forgot. And if to miss were merry, and if to mourn were gay, how very blithe the fingers that gathered these today. Now, normally, I'm not a big fan of this type of poem. This is a kind of a type of poem. If I were this and this were that, then this would I be type of poems. Edgar Allan Poe got into a couple of them. These are sort of cyclical poems. And normally I'm not a big fan of them because they just become a great big cluster. But this poem, and Emily Dickinson has quite a few of these too that kind of go nowhere. But this poem is in itself sort of an irony, and I want to examine the emotion involved. Now, I say emotion, but there are two emotions, missing and mourning, in this poem. Those aren't the emotion involved. And I want to take into account the one action that actually happens in this poem. So let's read the poem one more time just to sort of get a landscape of what's going on here. If recollecting were forgetting, then I remember not. And if forgetting, recollecting, how near I had forgot. And if to miss were merry, and if to mourn were gay, how very blithe these fingers that gathered these today. The emotions which are explicitly listed here, missing and mourning, these are not the emotions at play, and certainly not the sort of hypothetical emotions that are listed, to be merry, to be gay. Those are not the emotions at play either. What is going on here is very much more in the realm of negativity that is paralyzing. If recollecting were forgetting, then I remember not. This speaker cannot stop obsessing over whatever it was that had been. If recollecting, if remembering, were to not remember, then I don't remember, which means all I can do is think about that thing. Whatever thing that thing is, that's the thing I think about. That's my only thinking about. And because this thought has no reason to occur to our speaker unless our speaker is hoping to forget. You don't sit around and think, man, whatever fortune you have, you have a fortune of time, you have a fortune of money, you have a fortune of something in your life. Wonder, something in your life you have, you cherish. That's how you define yourself. Even some people get married to the idea of the suffering that they have. So, whatever it is that you have, were you to sit around and just think, pretend I was a rich guy, right? And I thought, man, if all my dollars were cans of sewer water, I sure would have a lot of sewer water. You don't start from the privileged position and ask yourself whether or not it would be something. Wouldn't it be something if I didn't have the stuff I have and instead had the exact opposite that is worse. So, what our speaker is doing here in the beginning is saying, oh, all I can do is think about this thing. If my thinking about this thing were not thinking about this awful thing, then I'd be great. If recollecting were forgetting, if me obsessing over XYZ was not remembering it, then I wouldn't remember it. But I do remember it. And it's the only thing that I have. So this is regret or this is shame. This is someone who is wishing not to have this event, this person, this happening, whatever it is, this tragedy dangling over their head for the rest of their life. Maybe this is a loved one leaving. Maybe this is a loved one dying. Maybe this is a romance that never did happen. Whatever it is, our speaker is obsessed over it to the point where she is, I will use she for convenience because this is an Emily Dickinson poem, to the point where she is saying, if all I could do was not do this thing, then it would be something in itself. So much so that we get to the rest of this poem, and if forgetting were recollecting how near I had forgot, and if to miss were merry, and if to mourn were gay, these couplets here make us really push us towards the idea that what has happened here is either a loved one had died or a boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. had said, I can't do this anymore. A breakup had happened, or once again, love unrequited could be had here. You miss the person you never had. You mourn the relationship that never was. I think all three of these are legitimate explanations for this poem, legitimate delvings into this poem. But then we get this last couplet. How very blithe the fingers that gathered these today. This is, in my opinion, not just Emily Dickinson sort of putting these emotions into the physical world to be plucked. I don't think that that's what's going on here. I think this is a double entendre. I think that what we are looking at here in this moment, how very blithe the fingers. Why bring up fingers? That gathered these today. There's no reason really to use this imagery, fingers and gathering, unless you're putting them together. Our speaker in this poem, is praying, is prostrate to the idea that whatever this tragedy is, whatever this tragedy was, well, in the event of our speaker, this tragedy still is still being, is still existing, whatever that tragedy is. It is to the extent, it is so great, it is so bad, it is so pervasive for our speaker that she is willing to put her fingers together, to gather her fingers in prayer that it be forgotten. There is no call in this poem to get over the thing. There is no call in this poem to get past the thing. Simply the call to forget it. Not for the event to never have happened. Our speaker doesn't even care at this point. Our speaker is to the point where just let me forget it. Now, to forget it, say this was a love unrequited. Say this was our speaker going to an individual and asking them, can we be in a relationship? and being turned down. Our speakers forgetting of this event does not wipe it from everyone's mind, just their own. Our speaker is simply saying, let everyone else know, I don't care. I need to live in the bliss of ignorance from this event. That sure is a powerful expression of wanting to forget. That's all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, and there's poetry every Monday. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.